High C Orange is back at McDonald's this summer.
That's
That is that's the
good.
greatest news I've ever. Aside from Mario Golf coming to the Switch, yeah. This
Mario Golf
honestly,
comeback.
this summer is just gonna be filled with Mario Golf, Jack in the Box tacos, and High C Orange from McDonald's. Like, and I know I can get
The
the High
most.
C Orange from Jack in the Box when I get the tacos, but I'm gonna make two stops, and I'm going to Jack in the Box for the tacos, and I'm going to McDonald's for the High C Orange for the culture.
Unpopular opinion. Unpopular opinion. Unpopular opinion. Unpopular opinion. Unpopular opinion. Unpopular opinion.
Hey, keep it real with me.
Yeah.
Hey, episode 5, the Unpopular Opinion Show. We're already on 5. That's crazy.
Dude. It
It's
flies by, doesn't it?
Listen, the first couple episodes, I was just trying to get it into my routine to do this show every week. And then since we had that 2-week break, I was honestly just sitting here like, what do I do with my life? Like, where's my hour of podcast and my 7 hours of editing video and uploading it places?
Oh man. Well, work threw me a curveball, but it's
Yeah,
okay.
we're
We're
back
back.
like we never left in the first. Wale Ovechkin, the best on the earth, yo. You gotta check out Wale slept on, honestly. Wale's one of the top rappers of our
That
generation.
uh that tape he did, the one that
More
had
About Nothing.
maybe
The More
fuck me
About
or something.
Nothings were like his
I don't
greatest
remember.
work.
There was one he did. I forget who was on the song with him, but I used to listen to it all the time. Yeah, no, Wale's
Super
underrated.
underrated. People call him corny,
Big
but
fan.
I mean, who isn't corny if you want them to be?
Dude, whatever.
Yeah.
Who cares?
People's people's opinions other than ours don't really matter, to be honest. I mean,
That's
I know
facts.
that's
I mean,
unpopular to say, but it's really
and
just the.
that's the name of the that's why the name of the show is why it is.
So, with that
Wow.
2-week break, we have had plenty of NBA news in these last 2 weeks. But we're gonna start off with some NFL just to like push that out of the way real quick. Carson Wentz got traded, like we thought, to Indy.
Yeah, I think
We
we called
did.
that, didn't we?
Where we got a little Miss Cleo in us. You know,
God. That was so obvious,
I
right?
felt that was the only who's
Like
gonna take him.
is it yeah, right? Like the Bears thing made no sense to me because that is like the ultimate like the Bears never have good quarterbacks. Like it just
Well,
doesn't happen. So like he would totally tank there and then Nagy and Pace would get fired and it just wouldn't matter. But like the Colts were the only place that ever made any sense
yeah,
for him.
they. I mean, Frank Reich is probably the only person in the NFL right now that like truly believes in him to give him the shot that he needs.
Yeah. Well, and like the Colts are the only team that have the setup
Yeah, to
possible,
be
I think, for him
successful.
to like succeed.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't want to say that they're favorites right now, but like if Wentz looks even passable, I think in week one, then I think you kind of have to just given the talent around
hmm
that team. But also, like I do want to say that Carson Wentz graded out as like the worst quarterback in
yeah.
football last year. So there's a lot of like hoping and wishing, I think, on the part
I
of the
mean,
Colts here. But you gotta, yeah, I mean, you got Frank Reich. You gotta hope that he can fix
his
them,
best
right?
seasons were under him. So
Yeah.
clearly, Frank's got he's got the code to make Wentz do some things, but we'll see if he could still
I
do
mean,
them. You know,
yeah, it's and maybe the trade is like something that gets him to remember that you actually have to try
yeah.
in the NFL. But I don't know. I feel like the book on his career is going to be very
Yeah,
interesting.
I mean, we pretty much know who someone is after the first few seasons. Give it 3 or 4 seasons. A quarterback usually doesn't change their stripes unless they were in an incredibly terrible situation, like a Ryan Tannehill or
it's
injuries.
yeah,
When
exactly. Which is why I think Sam Darnold is such an obvious candidate to like actually be good again or be
Oh yeah.
good, because who hasn't left Adam Gase and gotten better, at least at quarterback. Like uh it's pretty obvious. And I actually, while you mentioned there like how we know what a player is after 3 or 4 years, um one thing that really grinds my gears, especially when you're talking about sports with people on the internet, is when someone who is not a fan of or clearly doesn't understand fully part of what you're talking about. Like, you're a Titans fan. I would obviously ask you if I had a question about the Titans, because I would think that you would know more. But when like someone that declares themselves like a Packers fan or a Giants fan goes on God's internet and says Jared Goff is underrated because of this, this, and this, like, that's not true, man. Like, I don't know. I had someone tell me that Jared Goff is like a top 10 to 15
Oh,
quarterback in the NFL. Yeah.
okay.
And they're like, they like were a Giants fan or something like that. And I'm just like, no, like you can't even watch the box score and tell me that that's true. I hate this thing where people who very clearly do not actually watch the games tell you what you're supposed to be seeing on the field. Like, because I don't know how you could even watch the game and tell me that Jared Goff is like a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Like, it's just not possible. So I don't know. I try to watch the games before I make my make any statements. But yeah, I'm tired of box score watchers, man.
I
Pisses
mean,
me
you
off.
usually want to have a general education on what you're talking about before you start talking about it. So, at least watching maybe one Ram, you could honestly probably have watched a half of a Rams game and understood that Jared Goff was the problem. You
No,
didn't need to watch
it's
the
not.
whole game. Like,
It's it's insane to me. I don't know. And like to not understand that Sean McVay simplified that offense like multiple times, and Jared Goff still turned the ball over like it was hotcakes or something like that. I don't know, man. I I don't know what they're seeing that I'm
they're
not
not
seeing,
seeing
but
anything. They're
uh,
just saying things to say it. That's really what it comes down to.
insane. I do think like part of it too is like I can almost guarantee you that Matt Stafford is going to be come into LA as like the overrated guy, and Jared Goff is going to go to Detroit, and people are going to be like, "Oh, he's very underrated," because nobody likes that the NFL is in Los
Hmm.
Angeles now. So that'll be a fun thing to look
Yeah.
out for.
That's why I kind of stay away from Reddit. And when it comes to sports talk, I mean, it's already hard enough to be on Facebook or Instagram and listen to people's opinions on some of these topics. Like, you can clearly tell
It's
they've never watched a game, and they just like read some random other person's comment that also didn't watch
yeah,
the game,
no.
and then they just go off of that, or they have this
Social media is
no.
not the
But that's why
best.
we're here. We're here to give people that real deal, that opinion that's based on a little bit of education on the topic. You feel me? You know,
That's right.
because
That's
I actually,
right.
we actually watch sports, and don't base it off box
Yeah.
scores. I don't know. It's
Yep.
pretty simple.
Speaking of watching sports, let's jump into the NBA, which is something I've totally been watching.
I've been
I mean,
watching.
it kind of sucks. It kind of sucks that the season ended once Anthony Davis had to miss some games, but that's just how it goes,
Hey,
man.
look. Well, let's start off. Well, if we're gonna start off with the NBA, let's start off with the biggest story, I guess, is the super hot Utah Jazz. They're number one in the West, number one overall in the NBA. They look really good. They really do. But do you think that they are a legitimate title contender?
Uh, See, this is where my thinking in the NBA is kind of different. The Jazz are really good, obviously. They also remind me a lot of the Bucks from
Okay.
last year. Um, So yeah, they're a title contender, but I just don't think they're going to be there when push comes to shove. I don't know why, but there's just something about it. I don't buy into them winning an NBA title, but crazy things happen. I just think I think it's the two LA teams, right? Like it's the Lakers or the Clippers out west. Um, as we've said multiple times, like it's so hard to buy into anything that happens in the regular season. Um, Especially right now, I think what's going on with the Lakers right now is that the short off season, the month and a half that they had off, is starting to
Well,
catch
to
up to the
everyone
team.
but LeBron James.
Yeah. Um, so I think that's what's going on with the Lakers. But I mean, yeah, like the Jazz are for sure title contenders. I just don't think that when push comes to shove, I don't think that Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert is a better duo than LeBron James and Anthony
Yeah.
Davis. And it's just, I mean, that's the unfortunate truth here is like people kind of forget that in the NBA playoffs, you're only as good as like your top two players, and the Lakers just have the best duo in basketball.
Well,
So I mean, as rough as it's been right now, like I'd still take them. But also like Utah shoots well enough from three that I mean they can change the
yeah.
game like that. So it's so hard. And I mean I saw the second half schedules came out. I only really looked at the Lakers, who have 8 back-to-backs in the second half, and I think they had like 9 all of last year. So that's that's pretty
Jeez.
cool. Um, so like it's just it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. Listen, I feel like we've seen there have been situations, there have been teams in the past, most recently the 2010 Mavericks, or 20 yeah, the
Yeah.
2010-2011 Mavericks. They they shot the ball really well during the playoffs. They took out the Lakers. They obviously ended up taking out the Miami Heat, who were, of course,
Wait, it's so funny to me that like everyone looks at that series as like a detriment to LeBron's legacy, but they never mention that the Mavericks swept the defending champion
yeah, they
Lakers.
were a good
Like,
team. I mean,
and they did it
it doesn't take
badly
anything
too.
away from. I personally am one of those people who will give that blemish to LeBron. There's two blemishes in LeBron's finals record to me. Um, that one, the loss to the Mavericks, because let's be honest, like LeBron James is great, and he'd shown us before that he was great. Before that point, he should have got it together, and they as a team should have got together, and they should have beat those Mavericks regardless. They were up,
Yeah,
what, up 2-1 on them,
I think
and
they were up 2-1 because I
and
think
they
they
were
won game 3, and that was
and
kind of
they
like,
were
oh
up by like 20 points or something in game 4 and just let
yeah.
it go, and then that was the end of the series basically. So that one I
I
kind of
think
put on him. And also the other one is well, that's really it, I guess, when I really look at it. That's about
I
it.
think yeah, I I think I don't know. I get yeah, they should have won that series. But like the way people talk about it, you'd think that he lost to like the 99 Knicks. And it's just like the
Yeah, they weren't
Mavericks
a
were
bad,
really
that doesn't
good.
take anything away
Like
from the
it
Mavericks.
it
Like, they
just
were
it just
amazing.
always seems to get lost that that Mavericks team was just a buzzsaw in the playoffs. Like they beat
Yeah.
everybody. There's just nothing anybody was going to do to stop
Well,
them.
the Jazz could do something like that. The way that they play, they have great ball movement. Like, they have crazy ball movement. 3-pointers, they are shooting lights out from 3, and they have great defense. That's If they catch fire in the playoffs and some things happen, who knows? But to be honest, I don't think that they can beat the Lakers or the Clippers. It's not like you said, most of the time it's your top 2 to 3 players that dictate who's going to win a series in the NBA. And, you know, those two teams that we mentioned have the 2 better players when they're matched up against the Jazz. And on top of
Yeah.
that, I was talking to somebody about this, and they brought up a pretty good point. The Jazz, I don't know how they're gonna work in the playoffs with their two main guards being 6 feet tall. Like they're little.
Yeah.
Like Conley and Mitchell, they're gonna get abused by Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Even against the Lakers, they're gonna be able to match up with them, and it's that's we're gonna see what happens. But that's why I don't think they're gonna end up winning a championship. Can they get to the Western Conference Finals? Can they upset one of those two teams? Sure, it could happen. But I honestly see either a Western Conference Finals or a second round exit for the Jazz.
They have to hope that like the Lakers tumble and they can avoid playing one of those. Like they need the Lakers and the Clippers to play each other before they would have to play the Jazz. Like that's the bottom line, I think, for them.
Right.
But also, like who knows? Shit happens. It's crazy. I'm not judging the Lakers for anything. Like I don't care. They just need to be healthy going into the playoffs. And it's the same thing for the Clippers. Like I don't care about their record right now because I know like they're not built to win in the regular season. Like that doesn't matter to either of these teams.
Especially the Lakers.
And I think that's, like it doesn't matter. But for the Jazz, like, it does matter a bit to the Jazz. And so we'll see. But, I think that's the thing when it comes to a lot of this stuff. Like, we'll see. We know, especially like with the shortened NBA season, like personally, because of the short break for the Lakers, I really don't care about this regular season. Like there's nothing that can really get me to watch this like game to game basis, especially with the way like Anthony Davis is injured and all that stuff.
They don't
like,
have they haven't had Anthony Davis because of the sore. Yeah, Achilles. I think they ended up calling it a calf injury actually. Yeah,
it's like a calf. It's like a sore calf. I mean, I couldn't believe that he didn't tear his Achilles in the NBA Finals. That was I thought for sure he did. I'm glad he didn't. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if this is some kind of like extension.
Out of the abundance of caution, they're not going to play him for these next 3 weeks at all. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they decided to extend that maybe a week or so. I wouldn't freak out about that either. I think it would mostly depend on where the team is at that moment.
It's the same thing with the Nets too. Like I forget who made the point, but like it's almost kind of a blessing in disguise for the Nets that KD is out because this is ample time for like Harden and Kyrie to establish their chemistry. And KD is about the most plug and play guy you could have.
It doesn't matter who's out there on the floor.
It doesn't matter.
Throw KD out there and he's going to make it. He's going to do the exact same thing on every team.
Which honestly, like if you asked me today to pick who would win the NBA Finals, I would not hesitate to say the Nets. They're I think, I mean, personally, like, I think defense matters a lot less in the NBA than people think it does. Like, obviously, having a kind of anchor like Anthony Davis is important, but even then, you only have, Anthony Davis is such a good defensive player just because of how good he is offensively, and he doesn't really sacrifice anything on the defensive end. But, like, that's one of the reasons why I kind of struggle to pick the Jazz to win, is because I don't think Rudy Gobert is as good as people think he is. Like he's a non-factor on a certain point. Like he's really not that good offensively, and his defense doesn't make up enough for it. Because in the NBA right now, you have to at least score like 110 points a game. Like that's just how it is. So like the Nets are so good offensively that if they're giving up like 115, 120, it really doesn't matter because they're going to score like 125, 130 every single night. So yeah, I mean, the Nets. I mean, I'm glad they've kind of turned it around. I was pretty certain that poor Steve Nash was going to get fired.
Well, I mean, we've seen every single iteration of a big three struggle out of the gate almost. So it didn't really surprise me that they look bad. There was plenty of people over the internet and on TV talking about how terrible the Nets look and how it better be championship or bust for them. Like, dude, there's no other reason James Harden went there. There's no other reason that Durant paired up with Irving, and there's no other reason Irving and Durant wanted James Harden. They're trying to win a championship. It's stupid as hell. So like, they're gonna struggle in the beginning. They're gonna figure out their roles, and
It's just it's a lot of people needing to make something to talk about in the NBA. But yeah, like results right now, there's nothing to talk about with the results of games right now. Like none
yeah.
of
I
it
mean,
matters.
I think there's something you can take from them for sure. Like the regular season doesn't completely not matter. You can definitely get a lot out of it, but I do feel I see where you're coming from, where especially because of how quickly the season turned around and started, some of these records, some of these teams, they got off to the starts that they did because of like how quickly the season started off. It kind of feels like
Yeah,
like
like
it's like part of the season kind of didn't matter in a way. Like for example,
no, like
Miami was
the Heat.
terrible. We
Yeah,
didn't
the Heat are not a 14 and
yeah, didn't
17
pull. I mean,
team.
the Heat have played poorly, even with the return of some of their star players and just the team in general. But I mean, let's be honest, if they had started the entire squad at the beginning of the season, they wouldn't be 14 and 17. We might have
No,
10 losses or 12 losses, but definitely not, 14 and 17. So,
yeah,
it's hard to judge it, I guess. Same with the Lakers. Anthony
yeah. It's
Davis,
just
let's be real. Anthony Davis hasn't been playing at Anthony Davis level, and that's because the season had to turn around so quickly and he got hurt in the finals. So,
yeah.
you know,
I mean, it's almost. Ha, can we like? Adam Silver is very quickly burning all the goodwill that he earned for the Donald Sterling stuff, because this like after the bubble, like it has just been a comedy of errors for him.
my
Like the quick turnaround
I
sucks.
don't blame him for that though.
And then
I don't blame him for that because I don't know what else you could have possibly done in that situation. And for
I don't
most
know.
of the teams, they had an adequate break, some more than necessary break. You know what I mean? So, it's unfortunate for the
I think
Lakers, the Heat, and, those top four teams, the Nuggets. And
I think maybe you start the season for those teams that weren't in the bubble, and you start them a couple months or a couple weeks earlier, and then you bring the
but
other
doesn't
teams
that,
along.
but then do you have to stack their
Or
games?
or I mean, like maybe you don't hold an All-Star
Yeah,
game this year.
that definitely.
You give everybody like 2 weeks off in the middle
Yeah,
of the
that's
season.
probably the biggest blemish to me on Adam Silver right now. Like, why? Why are we having an All-Star game?
It's
You
pointless.
didn't throw the All-Star
Uh,
game for the reasons of COVID, and then now you're throwing it, and it's clearly for money. Like, there's nothing else to it but the fact that they just want that extra TV money.
yeah, no, it's ridiculous. I wholeheartedly disagree with it. And I think part of it too that a lot of people don't really want to acknowledge is like I think a lot of these guys miss playing in front of fans. Um, like I know for sure, like LeBron definitely does, but it's a different beast, like night in and night out, where you're like playing in an empty arena. So, I mean, that's nothing really Adam Silver can do about it, but I think once fans start to come back in, it's a lot more likely that we'll see this energy rise for
Yeah.
guys.
Speaking of All-Stars, did you feel like there were any snubs?
Now that Devin Booker is in there,
Who'd you
not
slide
really.
in for?
No,
Anthony Davis?
Anthony
Okay.
Davis. Yeah. Um, Booker was a big left out, but I mean, I think it was obvious that he was going to take AD's spot
Yeah, I
anyway.
mean, he should have been there over Paul George over Chris Paul. But
Yeah, but
the seniority, the fact that he is a big reason for why the Suns are, turned it around. He may not have the numbers Booker does, but he obviously does it in intangible ways. Uh,
yeah,
but I mean, Booker, if you're really looking at it, Booker should have been the Suns' representative from the start.
yeah. But other than that, I think it's pretty. I think it's
Well, I think the
fine
East
today.
the
This
East
season.
was where the biggest snubs were.
Who made the team in the East?
Well, first off, Nikolai Vucevic made it over Sabonis, and I have like no idea why.
Well, that's look, man. Uh, Vucevic is from Los Angeles, or he went to USC, so we have no qualms with that. That's
Listen, here's
fine.
my thing. Sabonis, they're literally like 1 point off from each other in almost all statistics. And Sabonis's team is like 8 spots higher than the Magic. So by the most other standards that they select all-stars, why, if it's that close, you would pick the player who's on a winning team. So why is Sabonis left out? Also, I think Trae Young was
And I
another
mean,
one. Like, why is Ben Simmons in there? I know they usually have at least 2 people representing whoever's leading in the conference, but come on, man. Like,
yeah, I think Trae Young kind of hurt himself with his like antics to
what
start
the
the
free
year.
like the
The stupid flopping that he
whatever.
does.
Friggin' James Harden made his
But
entire career off of that.
no, I know. I don't wholly agree with it, but I think that probably hurt him when it comes down to like coaches and other players voting. I think Tobias Harris is a bit of a snub.
If you're gonna pick somebody from
I
the
think-
Sixers other than Joel Embiid, yeah.
Yeah, I think Harris is a bit of a snub. Other than that, though, I mean, I really have no issues with these teams. They seem pretty.
I mean, there were
normal.
some people who were left
still do-
off that, I don't. I think sometimes people don't, like, if you're just left off, they think that just means you're a snub. I think a snub is more somebody who definitely deserved to be there over someone that you can name. You can name someone and say,
Yeah.
they should have been there over this person. But there are plenty of people who, like DeMar DeRozan, he's got the Spurs playing great and he's playing wonderfully. But can you put him over the names that are in there? No, you can't.
Yeah,
So does it suck
No.
that he didn't make it in? Of course it does. But that's not a snub. That's just the field is it's stacked. There's too much. There's a lot of good players.
in the
Like,
NBA.
and he would have needed, and that's he would have probably needed to be a top 3 team for him to have slid in there over somebody else.
Yeah, it's just the an unfortunate situation.
But shouts out to Julius Randle, one of the old baby Lakers,
That's right. That's
making
right.
it into the All-Star team.
I feel like I've seen more like Laker fans excited for Julius Randle making the All-Star game than actual Knicks fans.
I'm surprised some of the Laker fans knew where Julius Randle was.
Wow,
Man.
that's a low blow. Probably true, but
I mean, I've lived in Los Angeles long enough to understand the fan base.
that's just, no. There's just so many of us. It's unfortunate. Angelinos are a different breed.
Listen, there's a lot of sports going on in Los Angeles, especially now that we have football again. Who can blame somebody for, not paying full attention to all the
And
sports?
not being all on up and up. Yeah.
I mean, it's Los Angeles. Not only do we have 70 different sports teams, but
And if the teams are bad, it's just like everybody goes to the beach
Exactly.
anyway. So
you got the Los Angeles life. I mean, not so much now because of COVID, but normally, yes.
God, I'm so not to get too political here, but I'm so glad that it seems that Los Angeles has beaten COVID by being so bad at it that we've just gotten enough people infected where we have like some form of herd immunity.
Enough people
God,
got
it's so good.
infected or lost their lives, and now it's like, well, the numbers are going down. It's like, well,
Yeah, right. I want nothing more than to go to a baseball game again. If I could just please go to one baseball game this year and like one concert, I'll be fine.
yeah, going to a sporting event would be great.
I mean, and honestly, like if New York is allowing fans into MSG, then there is zero reason for us to not open
I mean,
Staples Center.
at this
I'm sorry. I just
at this
that's
point,
just how I
I'll
feel.
take just going to the movies or eating inside of a restaurant.
See, I don't mind the idea of like patio seating. Like I don't think you've been to Montrose since this all
Is it
happened.
nice?
But like, yeah, like the entire street is just like restaurant seating now. So like you kind of park above Honolulu, and you're just all of Honolulu is like tables and chairs, and it's actually
Well,
pretty
brother,
good.
in the high desert, there's wind and relentless wind
Can't do that.
and relentless weather in general. You know,
Oh, man.
if you're sitting at
Yeah,
60,
no,
we're sitting at 55. If you know, it's
that's tough,
with a
man.
wind chill factor with like 12-mile-per-hour winds. So yeah, sitting outside at Denny's in their tent isn't
Don't
fun.
work.
It's not fun at all. I don't know. I need to be able to go inside and eat. That's all I want at this point.
I'm so tired of all the different streaming services. This pisses me
What just
off,
happened?
dude. Sorry, not to derail
No,
it,
this is
but
important. What's
I'm
going on?
I'm checking out the Paramount Plus did a thread of all the content that they're
Mhm.
getting this year. Apparently, there's going to be a Halo series on Paramount
Okay.
Plus. There's going to be a new Reno 911 movie on
All
Paramount Plus. There's going to be a new Beavis and Butthead movie on Paramount Plus. This is I have to get Paramount. There's going to be
Wait,
a
you
new
have
Real
to
World.
get it? I was thinking the exact opposite.
Dude, for a Reno 911 movie, I
No,
got to.
Everything you just named, I was super
The
okay
gang
with
from
not
the
seeing.
gang from Reno 911 will return to take us on an elusive search for QAnon. I am so
I'm
all
going to
in
your
on that.
house to watch it then. I'm not paying monthly for that. Sorry.
Dude, we're right back to where we started, where like I guarantee you someone's gonna come out and be like, pay us $35 a month and you get access to all these
Oh
streaming
no, no
services.
doubt. We're like, we will rotate back to essentially cable prices. Like to be able to watch what you want to watch,
Oh,
it'll
yeah.
be right back to cable. You're paying $150
just-
through subscriptions. I mean, it's already kind of like that. I think if you got every subscription possible, you're sitting at like $80 at the moment.
Yeah, something like that. It's a
It's
lot.
like $80 to get everything. But I mean,
And Disney Plus is like the only one that turns out content worth watching.
I mean,
right
the
now,
only
so.
thing that could possibly, well, we won't go back to cable unless they smarten up and they stop allowing you to share on multiple devices with people. Once
Yeah,
they
that's
do
game
that and they lock you into whatever devices you're on or a network of like, you know, closer range devices, I don't know. That's when you won't be
I
able to
think-
do it.
What's funny is like what they didn't learn is like people stopped pirating music as much once Spotify and like Apple Music came on the scene because it was a cheap price just to have instant music at your fingertips. Like
Right.
that's what people want. Like we don't want to have to jump through a million hoops to access our content.
And
So, it's
people
gonna be
will
very
find a way to
interesting.
get their content without having to go through you.
Yeah. Like remember when Netflix first was like, yeah, we're gonna allow you to stream movies, and it was just like
Yeah.
mind blowing. And now it's just like everybody has
Everyone
it. It's
has
crazy.
it now. The Office is on Peacock. Pissed off.
Yeah,
Whatever.
whatever.
Anyway,
Yeah. Office is fine.
The Office is fine.
Yeah, I didn't really care. I watched it, and I mean, obviously there are bits that are funny, but it just wasn't.
You watched what, like one episode,
Wasn't as. No, I watched the whole
and
series.
you thought it was just fine after
didn't-
the.
It didn't move me as much as it moves other people. I think Parks. I think,
Okay.
I think
Anyway,
Parks and Rec is
so
like,
Blake Griffin is on the trade block, Detroit.
he's not getting
I
traded.
think
He's much more likely to get some kind of weird buyout than he is to get traded. His contract is untradeable for the player he
Yeah.
is.
How much of it do you think his production is based on being in Detroit?
Yeah, no, I think 100%. He strikes me so much as like a Nicholas Batum, where like as soon as he gets dealt to a new team or finds a new team, like he's gonna go back to like not like he's not gonna be Blake Griffin like he was back in the
Well,
day.
he can't jump like the
he's
Blake
also, like-
Griffin that he was back in the
Yeah,
day.
but he's also like he's adapted his game very well. Like he's a pretty decent
Yeah.
shooter now.
I would say
Um,
better than decent
I
shooter at
think,
this point. Yeah.
yeah, I think as soon as he finds a new home, he's gonna like
I
turn
think
some
he could
heads. I
average
think.
20 and 10. He
I
could
think
pull
so
a
too.
Randy
Yeah,
Moss.
the right team. I'm telling you, I would be super down for a front court of LeBron, AD, and
Mm.
Blake Griffin. That'd be something
I mean, do
interesting to
we?
watch. Although the funniest thing about Blake Griffin to me is like when Stephen A came out and said that he would have to apologize to the Clippers if he wanted to go back. It's just like
The
what?
Clippers would need to
He's
apologize
not
to him.
yeah, he's not the one that put himself on a t-shirt with like all these great black leaders and then got immediately traded away like a
Yeah,
year later.
put his
Like
jersey
that
in the
wasn't him.
rafters to get him to
Yeah,
sign the
that was
contract
not
and then
his
shipped him out.
that was not his
And
idea.
to Detroit, how disrespectful. Like they didn't trade
Hey, man.
him they didn't trade him somewhere where he could be successful. They did that on purpose.
Yeah, no, that was I don't think that gets talked about nearly enough. Um, the Clippers are very lucky that they're stuck in a market with the Lakers because if they were anywhere else doing the stuff they did to get Kawhi, like the whole saga that was them landing Kawhi Leonard from trading Blake Griffin the way they did and treating every player like they're just an asset, um, and then stalking Kawhi at like every single home game for the Raptors
Hmm.
and stuff like that. If they were in any other market, like people would not have been okay with that. But because everybody is looking for someone to challenge the Lakers, it was all fine
Yeah.
and dandy. So the book on that whole saga is going to be
Yeah,
so
the 30
wild.
for 30 will be cool. Do they even make 30 for 30
Can't.
still?
Yeah, I think they just did one on Al
Okay.
Davis. Didn't watch because can't say I really care about Al Davis too much.
Oh man. Yeah, I haven't really been watching, you know. We were talking about cord cutting earlier. I haven't really been watching ESPN to know that 30 for 30s are still there.
Yeah,
Still waiting on the one about well,
I mean, like I was saying earlier, like I don't watch sports talk or
I can't watch sports talk for
which
two
is funny,
reasons. Oh,
which is funny considering where I work. But
I can't watch sports talk for two reasons. One, I don't want it to friggin' poison my thoughts, and two, it's ridiculous. Like it's ridiculous. They're just talking
yeah,
a bunch of nonsense
it's
to get you to watch, and it's
that's
infuriating.
yeah, and I think that's what's so frustrating is that there are people like us that are able to tell that it's 99% entertainment and not meant to be taken seriously, but then there's a very loud and obnoxious 1% that think that these are actual
They
opinions that
take it
people
as the
hold.
word of God. Like it's the
Yeah, like
friggin' Bible being recited
it's
on TV, and because Stephen A said it,
it's
it must be correct. It must be
yeah,
right.
dude, I if I have to see one more like is LeBron the GOAT or is Jordan the GOAT take, I'm gonna lose my
I
goddamn
mean,
mind. I
what
can't
was
do
it?
it anymore,
What did
man.
Stephen A do recently that like and of course I saw it since I don't watch them. I actually saw it on like my feed on one of the social media accounts. Um, dang, I forget. He had some silly. It was super silly. I want to say it was probably about the Nets or something. I don't know. Whatever. It's just
Yeah,
silly.
it's
Yeah.
all just hot takes.
Just for entertainment value.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but I mean,
I think like we were talking about with Blake Griffin though too. I think Andre Drummond is in a similar situation, right? Like, is someone really going to take on his contract
yeah.
for what you're going to get out of him?
Well, Andre Drummond is a 20 and 15 player in the right situation. I think Andre
Yeah,
Drummond kind of gets like dumped on. I think Andre Drummond has a poor reputation because he played in Detroit. Let's be honest. If Andre
yeah,
Drummond was on the Lakers, if he was on any bigger market team or any more glamorized team than the Detroit Pistons, somebody who was doing anything at all, the numbers that he was putting up and has been putting up would be, talked about in a better light than what they are.
Yeah.
Like he could contribute. I saw somebody talking about what Andre Drummond doesn't contribute to winning. Like, how does defense and rebounding not contribute to winning? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
those those are like those intangible like factors that make the difference in the
yeah,
games.
I think he's a great player, but the teams that need him, I just don't know how they can
Money
acquire him.
wise, and yeah.
Yeah, like that's the tough part about her.
And I think
Blake.
they know that. I think
Um,
teams know that, and strategically they're going to wait for that buyout because they know Cleveland and Detroit aren't just gonna,
Yeah,
they
that's
can't do
just-
anything about it, so they'll just buy him out, and then you can just snag him for free.
God, that's an expensive buyout, man. That's I hope it happens for both of their sakes, because I mean Drummond on the Nets is like the most perfect fit. I still will never understand why the Nets had to give up Jarrett Allen to do what they
Maybe
did.
this was their plan all along. They sent Jarrett Allen to Cleveland. Then Cleveland sees Jarrett Allen, and they're like, this is our future. We got to get rid of Drummond now.
Buyout.
Then they knew that nobody would want to trade for Drummond, and he would get bought out. And then they get him on the cheap and fit him on the roster.
That's big brain
They're
stuff,
ahead
yeah.
of everybody right now. What's crazy is like the Brooklyn Nets are they're on a whole different wavelength, bro.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're exciting, man. I think they're a lot of fun. But yeah, they really need that center.
Who else got released was Cousins. Although I heard he might not make a return to LA, I was kind of hoping he would, but
he's just. Did you see like Tim Legler's quotes about him after he got released? Like, I think Cousins to the Lakers is one of those things that people are like, well, he was there last year, so obviously that would make a good fit. But like, if you actually watched Cousins play this year, he's just doesn't have it anymore. Like, he can't. He's slow. He doesn't make rotations.
Not gonna lie, I haven't watched Cousins, and it's because every time I finally tuned into a Rockets game, he was like hurt or just like didn't get put in.
Yeah, he's just not the player he was, and it'll break my heart forever because he was literally like a couple months away from a massive payday. He was
the best center in basketball when he went down, and
then just torn Achilles.
It's unfortunate that the Kings are the ones that got his best seasons. Like, how crazy is that is the saddest part of the entire story. Like, I get him about to get a paycheck for how great he is and getting hurt right before it. That's terrible. But the fact that his first 6 or 7 years was just completely wasted in Sacramento. All the highlights we're going to watch of DeMarcus Cousins are going to be in the Kings uniform for nothing, for like a 15-win team.
Yeah.
That is the saddest thing. And half the people don't know that he is the greatest. He is not the greatest. He was the best center of that time period. And they'll never know because he was just stashed away in Sacramento, and there was all that, BS about his attitude that, let's be honest, wouldn't have mattered if he was in LA or Miami or Boston.
One of my favorite things with Boogie is that remember that time that Chris Paul flopped off of him? Remember that? It was like Chris Paul ran up to him and bumped his
didn't he get a technical? Didn't he get a technical for it too?
I think so, because he laid his head on Boogie's chest and then he flew backwards like a sniper was in the building. God, I'll forever feel bad for him. He was so close to getting that massive payday and just didn't get to have it. But I don't. He doesn't make sense for the Lakers. He doesn't make sense for anybody. I mean, the most intriguing name to the Lakers, and I really can't believe I'm going to say this because I don't like it at all, is probably Hassan Whiteside.
I saw that today. Listen, I have so many feelings about Hassan Whiteside.
I don't like him at all.
That is a player that doesn't do things that contribute to winning.
Yeah,
He's
it would be like, I mean, and in fairness, the Lakers did get a really good season out of Dwight Howard when no one thought that Dwight Howard was ever going to be an impactful basketball
Yeah.
player again. So maybe like playing with LeBron and AD like gets Whiteside to stop like chasing
I
his
mean,
personal stats.
I
but
would bet
don't-
on LeBron James
think-
and company turning Whiteside around in that situation. I would bet on it. If they announced today that Hassan Whiteside was going to the Lakers, I would bet you would see a different Whiteside, like because he's on LA. That's where my money would go.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I'm not that sold on it. The buyout market's going to be weird. Like I don't know how big it's going to be. It could be huge. It could be tiny. But I am kind of surprised that the Lakers waived Quinn Cook. I thought they would keep him around as like a morale
their
type guy.
backcourt is pretty stacked. There's not really room for him, if you think about it.
No, he didn't play much.
I mean, he couldn't.
Anyway,
You got Schroeder,
Yeah.
Caruso, Wesley Matthews, Horton Tucker. The Lakers play big,
Yeah.
so technically you could throw their small forwards in there too.
Yeah, they need Schroeder back so bad. They really have been struggling.
That's the worst
without
part
him.
about AD being gone is not having Schroeder as well.
Yeah, I think they're supposed to get him back.
Yeah, it was only because of like
Friday,
COVID protocols or something like that, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. Whiteside, it could work. His biggest flaw, like people look at his block stats, but to be honest, he's like, if you actually watch games, if somebody is one-on-one on Whiteside, they're gonna score 1,000% of the time. He is only good on help defense. That's it. Which that may be.
He chases his own stats.
And that may be good. Like his help defense may be good when you're pairing him with Anthony Davis. Then the responsibility of the best big man isn't on Whiteside, and he can go, hunt blocks and stuff.
Yeah.
That could be a great situation, but.
And that's the thing too with Montrezl Harrell. Like, it's so funny how many people were like, "Wow, that was actually surprisingly good defense by Harrell," and it's like, well, yeah. Like the Lakers aren't asking him to go guard Nikola
Right,
Jokic
but Montrezl Harrell
one-on-one.
is also like 6'8", and they were playing him. They were playing him at center against Nikola Jokic, who's 7 feet. Like, of course, his defense is going to be completely garbage.
One thing I want to mention before we get to the Timberwolves being the funniest team in basketball, the Celtics have to be like the leading contender for the most disappointing team in the NBA, right?
Most definitely. I don't know what you do with Kemba Walker. I don't.
He's done, right? Like I don't see any way that Kemba Walker is an effective baskbasketball player.
When
again.
I look at this team, the system, I feel like the system they're running isn't good enough. I don't know what Brad Stevens is doing, but there's too much isolation in their offense, and they need a true point guard. Like at the end of the day, if like Chris Paul went to the Celtics, I think this team would have like 10 more wins under its belt than it does.
Maybe, yeah, it's super possible. Obviously, I think it's hilarious that they're as bad as they are. And I think it's well deserved because Danny Ainge might be the most overrated executive in any sport. But
it's that Isaiah Thomas curse.
Yeah, I mean it's got to be something, right? But even Bill Simmons is starting to like sour on Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens.
Hey, when you've had the amount of Danny Ainge had a hand, like the most perfect hand for like 5 years. And if you 5-10 years almost here, what has he done with it?
Yeah. And he always got fawning media pieces about how good of a GM he was. And remember when the Celtics had that massive war chest that they were going to use to acquire a big player, and they
haven't
just
acquired.
Never did.
The biggest player they got was Kemba Walker, and it wasn't even through trade. I mean, they signed and traded, but they didn't. They
didn't get anything for Gordon Hayward, and he's having like a revival season in Charlotte.
The best thing that they got out of their
they sent Terry Rozier away for almost nothing.
Balling
right?
out now.
They didn't even get anything for him. Yeah, and he's good. No, I think it's funny. Obviously, it's very funny. Have you ever noticed, like, whenever a player of note gets traded, like, there's always an article somewhere that mentions that, like, Danny Ainge and the Celtics were in
Yeah.
until the end, but they didn't manage to do it. I think it's happened for like every star
Yeah,
player that gets
the
dealt.
Celtics are at the
Um,
table, but they just never can get it done.
yeah, like with the whole Anthony Davis saga was so funny, man.
And they have
Oh,
all the picks. How did you have all the picks and you got nobody to give
well,
you
and
your
it's
players?
yeah, and well, it's also funny because like those picks just didn't turn out to be any good, which is like honestly the Celtics hoarding all those picks is like such a prime example of why you can't worry about draft picks. Like I know it's not one to one in different leagues, but like if you don't, I don't know, like the Rams probably saw what happened with the Celtics war chest and were like picks aren't that valuable. Like it does it I'd rather get a player that's actually good than have a lottery ticket because the Celtics were relying on the Grizzlies to be bad and when they weren't that pick's value just plummeted. So like holding on to it for so as long as the Celtics did doesn't mean
Hmm.
anything. And they shot themselves in the foot. It's
I mean,
so
not to
funny.
mention that draft picks are
It's so
so
funny.
they're so hit or miss. They're
Yeah, especially in the NBA. Like the most valuable draft picks in the NBA are in the top 10. After that,
and not
it's
even
such a
completely
wild
the
card.
top. Like your almost only guarantee is that like your top three picks. You have a high shot at getting somebody who's pretty good, like a
Yeah,
game changer in most drafts. But half the
yeah,
time, like nine or 10 of the 14 that got drafted in the lottery end up being nothing.
yep.
Not
It's
even a serviceable role player.
no, it's very funny. I love it. I love their misery.
So I don't know.
Start that Tatum to LA clock.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know what they. I wonder what they'll do. They got to do something. They need a traditional point guard, and they need to change what their offensive system because right now it's just not working. It's just not
Yep.
working at all. And I don't know if that means you trade Kemba. I don't know who wants Kemba at this point. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if you
It's
have to end up letting go of one of Tatum or Jalen Brown to be able to make a significant move for another player. But like we said,
yeah.
they haven't had great success trading
Tatum
anyway.
Tatum has a player option in 25. So
So we got a couple.
let's just remember that. Just remember the guy that grew up idolizing Kobe Bryant has a player option in 4 years when he'll be
Uh
27 years
oh.
old.
Uh oh.
Uh-oh.
Can't wait to see those jerseys burned in Boston. It's gonna be called a traitor.
Oh man. God.
Especially going to the LA, because let's
I
be
would
honest, the only people who remember the
I
Lakers
know.
Celtics rivalry are fucking Boston Celtics fans.
Yeah. That's well, see, that's what's so funny to me too. It's like the Clippers thing was so forced. And I think now that since the Lakers won last year, like no one even talks about that anymore. Like no
Hmm.
one cares. It's so obvious how forced that was. But yeah, the Lakers and the Celtics really do not like each other. So that is yeah, that would be madly funny if that happened.
Yeah.
I would be very happy if that
I mean, I'm
happened.
pretty sure they were pissed Rondo got a ring with LA.
Ooh, God,
That had
about
to
that
hurt a
too.
bit.
Um, so like, I was asleep when it happened. Um, but again, I think it was the funniest thing ever when I woke up to seeing that Ryan Saunders got fired, and I was like, I wonder who's going to coach the coach the Timberwolves. And then I scrolled up like two tweets, and it was like they've hired the Raptors
Like
assistant.
5 minutes after they
Like
fired
five
Ryan
minutes.
Saunders.
Oh God, that
Ryan
is
Saunders got
what a dumpster
fired
fire.
because Cat Williams because Cat was out for like 15 games to start the season. Like, how did you get fired because your team is bad when your best player is out? What kind of
Yeah,
logic does
I mean,
that make?
well, from everything I've heard from Wolves fans, Saunders was in over his head, but it's still just very funny to me that they immediately had like they obviously wanted to fire him for much longer than that, if they just went out and hired somebody
I mean,
right
at
away.
that point though, it doesn't matter if Ryan Saunders was a dumpster fire. Like, let him finish the season at this point, and actually have a hiring search. Like, I
It's
guarantee
just-
you they're gonna end up having another coach in the next 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the idea. I think Gerson Rosas knew the new coach from when they were somewhere else together. But yeah, no, that was so funny. And the coaches association is pissed about it, as they should be,
because they didn't do their they didn't go through the due process of giving candidates a shot, especially minority candidates. Trying to figure out, all right, how many teams, how many black coaches are there in the NBA?
I think there's
there
5 or something like that. If I remember
a really small percentage in a league that is 90% dominated by African Americans. So, like, explain to me how we don't have more African American coaches in a sport that's dominated by African Americans. It makes no sense.
It's it's not ideal, but it's also the same problem like in the NFL. It's majority African American league with not a lot of representation on coaching staffs, which, like, I don't think we got to talk about it, but Urban Meyer hiring the coach, Urban Meyer hiring that strength coach from Iowa that got fired for being racist, and having to have that guy resign within like a day or two. That was an all-time blunder and self-inflicted wound by that guy.
Urban Meyer, hasn't he had a couple in his past?
Yeah, and in talking with a couple people that may have actually played in the NFL from time to time, he would not have lasted that long in that locker room, because if he had said something off color or even slightly off-putting to anybody, they would have checked him pretty quick.
That's grown men, not kids. You can't pop off like that and intimidate a grown ass man like that.
It didn't surprise me when I heard the former player say that, but it was nice to get some confirmation from someone that's been in those locker rooms.
No, that was very Urban Meyer. That's all I really got to say on that. That was
such a heat check. Like, he was just like, how can I get away with this? And just didn't stick for him.
Yeah. Jaguars. I love them.
I've been watching some Trevor Lawrence tape. He's gonna be fun.
I'm a little upset he's in the AFC South, but
I know. And I was telling one of our friends, I was like, I kind of wish that, like, the Rams or the Chargers had the #1 overall pick this year, because I'd love to have Trevor Lawrence on my team for like the next 10 to 15 years.
I mean, who lost the Jets? I mean, he would have been fun over there.
Yeah,
they'll be fine with Darnold, but
I think Jacksonville is a way better position to recover faster than the Jets are.
The Jaguars have been a dumpster fire in the last decade or so.
Outside of that 1 year really where they were like 10 minutes away from going to the Super Bowl. After that,
they've been a dumpster fire for the last decade, but we can't forget that they came in as an expansion team and was really good, and they were a pretty decent team throughout those late 90s and early 2000s. So they have the ability to turn it around. Jets, on the other hand, no, I don't think that's going to take some work.
I think the Jets are going to be better than people think, but I don't think they're going to be very close to being a contender. Just because, like, they still have the Bills in their division. They have the Dolphins. I think the Patriots are going to be better next year, as painful as that is to say. So it's just like, it's kind of just like, it's like, just, someone has to come in last, right? Like, unfortunately, we can't all, like, not everybody in the division can go 10-7.
we don't all get first
What-
place
that's gonna
trophies just because we played. So
That's going to be the hardest thing about next season is like remembering the added game to the win totals. When we do our NFL preview show, like we're gonna have to remember that a team can't go 12-4; they're gonna have to go 13-4.
oh wait, they added this.
Yeah, there's the 17th game
Oh,
starts next year.
snap.
I know.
Yeah, there's definitely gonna be some blunders in that NFL preview episode. I'm gonna be like, yeah, the Titans are
Is there-
gonna go 12-4.
What else has happened in the time that we've been away? I guess JJ Watt got released. Do you have an opinion on that?
I have no opinion until he lands somewhere. I mean, I think we
Yeah.
already said the Texans were trash during the whole
Yeah, they're
Deshaun
dumpster
Watson
fire.
saga. So,
That's
and that's still going on. We still don't
That's
know
it.
what's gonna happen there.
I don't think he's getting dealt.
No, you
I
think
really
you think
don't.
that
I don't
you
think
think that
so.
time's passed?
I think we like to think that like player empowerment is coming to the NFL, but like at the end of the day, these teams have so much more power over the players than like you see in the NBA. I really don't think he's going to get traded. I don't know what that means for him because I think he'd be silly to retire or anything like that. But I just the longer it takes, the less likely I
I
think,
think
it is
it's
that he gets
easier
traded.
for a quarterback to pull the strings as far as player empowerment goes, because a quarterback can
Yeah.
sit out for a season, and I don't think anyone is going to think that he's lost a step. It's not like a running back or like a wide receiver. Like they sit out, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, they get this like
Yeah.
stigma that they're going to be garbage coming back, and it's like the quarterback position, and as good as he is and how young he is, I feel like if he forced the Texans' hand by sitting out, I think that they could make a move.
Yeah.
And if he,
Yeah. And I don't know, like I think I was talking with my friend on my baseball show earlier, and there was an executive for the Mariners that like went to a meeting at a Rotary Club and just like basically revealed every secret that baseball owners have been like screwing over the players with for the last like few years. And he just kind of like said it out loud. So that's going to kind of change the way the next baseball CBA gets negotiated. But thinking about it now, I think that there's got to be owners in the NFL that are calling up the Texans and being like, "Hey, you can't budge on this. You can't budge. Like you have to hold on to him. You have to hold him in town," because they don't want that precedent set where a quarterback can be like, "Hey, I'm leaving if you don't, shape up here."
yeah, and the
I
NFL
don't
is a
know.
little
Like, at least
less.
that's
I guess the word would be like progressive
yeah.
than the NBA is. Like,
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like the NFL owners all talk to each other. I'm sure. Like there's a big, it's
yeah,
a big
well,
club.
I mean, that's why Kaepernick
so,
couldn't
like,
even find a backup job.
Yeah, I'm sure Jerry Jones is like, "Hey, you can't budge on this because I don't want Dak getting any ideas once I franchise tag
Yeah,
him
that's
again."
a pretty solid point. I'm pretty sure that as a whole, NFL owners don't want that move to happen, and that's
Yeah.
why it won't happen.
I won't be shocked if it does happen, but I just don't think it's going to. The longer we get, they're going to try as hard as they can to get him to come to camp and get him to come back to the team. So it's going to be I don't know. I hope he gets dealt. I hope he does. I also don't want him to get traded to San Francisco or Denver. That'd piss me off.
I need him traded because I don't want him in the AFC South anymore. Doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah.
The
AFC South. That's a rough division to be in, man.
I mean, I'm glad Carson Wentz came.
Yeah, it's a gamble. If he gets back to 2017, then that's
yeah.
I think the Colts
Then
kind of
we're
own that
screwed.
division. Yeah.
With Trevor Lawrence coming up
if
in
he
the
doesn't,
wings,
then-
and
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence and still Trevor Lawrence coming there, and then still maybe Deshaun.
and then we just got Ryan
That's,
Tannehill.
that's rough.
He's good, but
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah, no, that's not fun. It's not fun at all.
I'm pretty sure that wraps everything up though.
I think that's it for
Yeah, I
today,
mean,
right?
just remember everyone, the most important news of the day: High C Orange is back at McDonald's starting this summer.
Maybe. Is that like insider info?
No,
Or you just saw like a
they actually announced it on their website.
oh
They said
oh
fan
okay.
favorite High C Lava Burst is coming back,
It's coming
baby,
back.
this summer.
Oh.
Just in time for that dollar drinks, dollar any size drinks too.
Oh man. This Chris Mannix tweet just came across my timeline. This is what we'll close with. It is from May 5th, 2018. And it says, "You are the GM of an expansion team. You have your choice of any NBA player or Brad Stevens. Who do you choose?" 65%, 68% of people said the player because
Yes,
they're smart. And 34% of people said Brad
they don't
Stevens because
watch
they're also
basketball.
smart. Yeah, because
Yeah.
they're stupid. So yeah, that's again, just as we dump on the Celtics here a little, that's my final thought on today's episode.
Jeez. That's crazy. Well, all right, everybody. Thank you for listening, whether on YouTube or on any of those podcast platforms. And we'll try not to disappear on you too long. Just got to see what life deals us.
Oh, dude, look at my! Watching Myles Garrett play guard right now.
Oh,
Get him! Oh, he's got a stroke, bro. Dude, Myles Garrett is a
Myles
freak.
Garrett is a beast.
That's where JJ should go, is Cleveland.
Mm.
Oh, can you imagine those two across from each other?
Yeah, that'd be a problem. And I would be okay with it.
And then
I just don't want him going to
Yeah.
Pittsburgh.
No, well, I guess they can't really afford him.
Yeah,
So that's
I
good.
mean, he could end up on the cheap sheet.
I want
Who knows?
JJ. I want I want JJ in Cleveland, and I want Von Miller
Is
in
Von
Los
Miller
Angeles.
moving?
They might cut him. I would hope that they would figure out a way not to, since he's so important to that team. But yeah, so I mean, that's what I'll close with. If you guys could please send your energy to get Von Miller to the Los Angeles Rams, that would be ideal. And
prayers up for Tiger, dog. Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. I guess. God, I can't believe he, as morbid as this sounds, but I can't believe he didn't die from seeing the wreckage. Yeah, thank God he's alive.
God. And hopefully, he's got a crazy comeback story playing golf again, but we'll see what happens.
Man, yeah, we can talk about that next time. I have to say, just hang him up.
Yeah. Well, there's a teaser for next episode, everyone. Adios.
Tune in.
Bearded king first. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. We the best of the best. Not too many top-notch podcasts left. We don't even need much time to prep. Never ever know what we gon' do next, but real recognize real, you see. So please tell me that you're feeling me, cause I can smell jealousy from a mile away, and there's no space for that on the show today. Might hurt a couple feelings, but so what? It'll be a good story to tell when we blow up. Try to shut us down, you gon' have no luck, cause we locked in and we tryna get the whole cut. So just vibe, look alive, pay homage, we arrive. We ain't going nowhere, so fall back. Legendary anthem like Left Eye and all that. Unpopular opinion, I'll swagger on a million. Immaculate civilians, adapting like chameleons. Be cautious in our dominion. Banks all around us on Vivian, taking off like balloons filled with helium. Got cheese and bread, Sicilian. Unpopular opinion, unpopular opinion.